Ready. This is the Economic Development and Airport Committee meeting. Has everybody had a chance to do roll call first? We need to do roll call first. Mr. Fellner?
Here.
Dr. Fellner? Mike Richard?
Here.
I don't know who,
And yours.
and myself, okay. I didn't know if I had to.
No, nobody else counts.
Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 20th meeting.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
okay, seconded by Mike. Richard? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, have we had a chance to look at the agenda?
If there's no additions, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I've got a couple questions. I don't know which one you're looking at, so.
The back.
closer up to- Is it a 4-item agenda?
4 items, yes.
Okay.
I had this one, this is.
Yeah, this is not the
minutes.
email one then, right?
No,
Okay, all right, not a
No,
problem. I can get it.
that's okay.
I can get it.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Dr. Founder?
Yes.
All three. Okay. So, the first item of discussion that we have on the agenda is the experienced galleon, and this is the ordinance 2018-32 that was drafted back in 2018 that we have a copy of. And I think where we are at this point is we've discussed that we think that that something like experienced galleon is a good thing for our city to help with the economic development. However, I've reached out and tried to communicate and heard like Mike's suggestion, reach out to the other entities when we're talking about economic development, and I did not get any response. So I think we talked about what now to do with the experienced galleon.
What entities do you refer?
Well, when we talked a few months ago when I was talking to Mike about Dora, and Mike was like, you need to reach out to the chamber, to Experience Galleon, and I did. I reached out to all the places he recommended, and I never heard anything back from Experience Galleon.
Well, I think, Mr. Palmer, did you determine that the experienced galleons nonprofit business was not renewed?
But the situation with Experience Galleon as a corporation is that it was canceled for failure to file a statement of continued existence last year. They have until the latter part of this month to remedy that. They could do that, however, in the interim, I don't know where the email was sent. I know that I got a copy of it, even though it wasn't sent to me. A copy from Experience Galleon saying that they are not, they basically have folded, and they're requested, they said they're not going to cash the last check that they had received, and that they are doing a final marketing thing, which they had already paid for, but that was it for them.
And you all got that, I think.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I didn't, but that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's in your email. I'm sure that that's how it was sent.
I'm sure I overruled it.
It was very full email.
Question on this would be, do we, given the fact that, and I agree with Melissa that experienced galleon is a good thing, hopefully in the future, near future preferably, somebody will pick up the reins, so to speak, and maybe carry it on. But until the interim, do we need to draft anything? Because that does name in this ordinance a payout, so to speak, to Experience Galleon from the ed tax, specifically named, or is, that's what I'm asking the question.
Well,
They
yeah,
said- I think they're severing their contract. You read that email.
yeah.
Right,
They're just
right.
severing the contract.
So there's no need
So do
for
we
us to
keep the
add.
money in the general fund until another
Yeah.
designee appears? I mean, we're obligated to send a percentage to someone who is
Right.
for travel and tourism.
It will go
Right.
into the very last fund in the list of funds.
Okay.
Travel and Tourism Bureau, I think it's 9 or something or other at the end. It'll continue to go in there.
Okay.
But it won't come out.
All right.
That's half of it. The other half that goes to the general fund will still go there.
All right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
I think the email that I remember receiving was was from Mr. Satterfield about, is he going to terminate payments to
Yeah.
to the organization?
Yeah, Brian and I took care of that.
Okay.
But what
So
we do
you have
now
to-
is just wait until there's a nonprofit that appears and makes that request. And it has to be a nonprofit organization that has acting as a convention or visitor as one of its points of emphasis, one of its points in its articles of incorporation. And you just wait until that time comes. Sure.
Yeah, and then you decide whether to designate that group
Yes.
as the travel and tourism.
Right.
Well, until that happens, the money will accumulate.
I was gonna say, can we use the money without, it has to be a nonprofit,
No,
so
it has
even
to be,
though,
it has to be another organization.
another organization, okay.
Yeah,
You did say
that's
Well,
designated as the travel and tourism entity. So it's about 25 grand is the total income, or that's the income for the general fund. We've received 19,000 so far. Nothing this month of October when this report was printed a day or two ago. So it's two more things. One, that most of what they have done is very positive. I'll take the most off that. What they've done has been real positive. There have been contributions the last couple of years, I think, to the Oktoberfest. In the past, it's been things like Third Friday, and other community events that's gone to. I think the Pickle Run has received a check. The biggest impact to the city is that they were consistent about paying for half the fireworks. So that money will be tied up unless something else happens, some group comes forward. That'll be sitting there, and we'll have to make a decision about how to fund what people expect as far as fireworks.
Well, my question would be is, where do you find the people to take over? How did you find these people when you developed this?
The organization was established first,
I thought
and then
they
approached
found
the
us.
city.
Okay,
There was
okay,
a small
so,
group that, of local citizens, and they formed this organization, came to the city, and we kind of gave it our blessing and also an ordinance that they would receive. They would act as our tourism liaison, and it was an appropriate organization in which they received the money from the bed tax.
so who paid for the fireworks prior to 2018, all those years?
Well, they weren't what they used to be, or they weren't, they're a lot better since we were able to put that together. going back before,
When
let's
the
say a
girls-
decade ago, the service clubs, the Rotary, it's largely one person. The Rotarians
Okay,
probably get mad, no more invites, but there was a gentleman around town named Bill Lott, and he was pretty cool about that and really helped the Rotarians raise the money. And I think during the time that the city didn't do anything except, I guess, allow or permit the activity, they were the funders.
so I guess my,
Somebody's that's police department, is that where that's coming from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
my concern was that I think it's a great, committee.
Yeah.
But I literally emailed every single person that was even named just to get with them, to ask them. So that was kind of why, I don't think it would have had to come to this if maybe even one or two people would have wanted to keep it going. But I just didn't get that feedback.
Yeah, well, I agree that.
So, and I don't want to make it sound like, we're doing this. It was more like, I was really reaching out for some ideas and some things, and that was all. And I was just really hoping somebody else with that list of people would come forward and say, so-and-so's not working on it, but I'm going to do whatever. And so now it sounds like nobody really wants to move forward because they're busy or whatever.
We have to confirm, but I believe the Port Authority can operate as the travel and tourism, but we're not a 501(c)(3), we're a governmental agency. If you can confirm it, that we could make the Port Authority as an interim operator or even take over the responsibility for that long term or until somebody else serves. I mean, yeah, I believe we're permitted to do that, but I would have to
It
check.
probably would be as just in conceptual form, but you would have to adopt operating as a convention and visitor bureau as one of your main operational goals or tasks.
Which I don't believe would be difficult for us to do. So we could be your,
That would be
Your-
great. And
your
then
solution.
there's your firework money.
yeah,
And whatever other money that, that so it's not tied up.
Yeah, my commentary on that would be focus, produce results,
but I'm just offering up
I
if you
understand
need
that.
something
Of course,
to handle it.
Like, let's focus on the port, getting involved in this is, I appreciate the offer, I guess, from my point of view. I would let it breathe a little bit, meaning we don't know what group may or may not come together around this group. They saw their role primarily as supporting the event center, the free center. We'll talk about that kind of in a minute in a different context. But when you read Eric's letter, you'll see that he believes since that's not happening, then there's no need for the group as he understood it to be there. I think that's a pretty fair.
That doesn't make any sense though, because you just said that they help the pickle run, the fireworks,
I don't know.
the third Friday.
Yeah,
So it
no.
sounds like they're way more involved than just the free center.
All I said, Melissa, is read that email from him, and in it you'll see that they saw that the primary reason for them coming together didn't exist. That the first thing they did, I think Mike and Doc will remember, is to fund what was the last feasibility study for the free center. Was one around which the estimated operating cost and those kinds of things. So about half of that money roughly came from accumulated travel and tourism money. So I think that's kind of, they saw their mission initially as involved in that. I think there's a lot more, there's continuing need to do travel and tourism. The fireworks, they'll be, be shot off in coordination with the pickle run. But that I don't want people to have the impression that they didn't do anything with the money. If they're dissolving that entity, which is different than these guys saying the heck with it. If no one wants to pick up that 501c3 and reactivate it and do the things they need, then there's probably a inventory of assets that we want to see if they purchased anything, if they have anything that by their rules would describe where we're supposed to go. So anyway,
Well, I will kind of piggyback on the mayor, because I think that, I too appreciate the Port Authority making the offer. I think that there very well may be an entity out there that would be interested in picking up this mantle to do things that they've always wanted to do for the community and such. So I think it would be better just to kind of, for lack of a better term, sit on it for a little bit and see what happens.
I do suggest you read the email because it sounds like, it sounds like that there was just a beginning of things to come and all these other things, but they didn't follow through with what.
right.
So I'm a little confused as to why he.
But they were.
It was written like they did a lot of things, but then again, then there was no, I guess that was my point at one of the other meetings was, I think it would have been great to say this was by Experience Galleon. This was happily presented by, and whatever. And I never really saw that. Like, wait, why don't we give them the credit? Why didn't we give the credit? So I'm a little confused about that email, but.
You got patience for one more thing. What I know from reading and talking to a few people is that the other CBB in the county, the Bucyrus, is in a state of transition. So, and I mean this without being a wise guy, this may be a situation where you could have some conversations about, I don't think Galleon joins the Bucyrus group. That tends to be what countywide things start out as and end up as, but neither organization is functioning. I think both of the revenue bases are kind of too small unless you have members. So for instance, the Galleon Theater could join the Convention and Visitors Bureau. That's a little bit that's kind of how the Bucyrus Group operated. They had members who paid into that treasury as well as a donation from the city. But before we sit on it or let it breathe, I think we're saying the same thing in a initial contact. Probably wouldn't hurt to see where they're going. Meaning Bucyrus Travel and Tourism. So anyway.
So how does the community, how did they become aware that they could possibly form this?
Well, there's a guy that comes in that's active in Bucyrus and Galleon that comes into our office. I'll talk with him when he comes in.
So I was going to say, you said wait and see if somebody comes forward, because they came to the council. So how do people know, other than listening to this, that we're looking for the help with the Bureau
Good point.
of Travel and Tourism? Unless it's in, I guess that's my question. How would you communicate that?
I think the people who have locations, I don't know if that's the right word or not, the Gill House, the Historical Center, those folks I think are probably aware of the situation we saw
Oh, yeah.
with the depot that is, so maybe
So they
from that group, the group that has travel and tourism going on, you know,
That would be great.
I'd hope that they get the, you know, the notion that either a new group or them operating with another stated purpose would be something that,
would be,
Just to let you know, there is, speaking of piggybacking on what Tom was saying, that already goes on with the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Mansfield. The Gill House is a member of that CBB. And we get, you know, we pay $150 a year and get, I'm telling you, $5,000 worth of benefit from it. It's very aggressive marketing and it does really well for us. The other thing I'll mention is that already those types of attractions, let's call them historic attractions, in Crawford County are forming an informal alliance already. And this is a natural segue perhaps to something more organized. But the History Center, the Gill House, the Bucyrus Historical Society, Crestline, we're all part of this new history alliance. And it's proving to be helpful. So I think there will be a future. It's just, it'll come, something will come out of this.
good.
yeah, I'm not going to cause another cringeworthy moment, but for about 5 or 7 years, that same organization was zero help as we tried to bring they mentioned that the attraction that they thought they were formed around. So the great organization, I don't doubt that they bring business to Gill House, but they have been deaf to repeated efforts to try to coordinate with them on the Freeze Center. And they have the largest, of the idea of it being a travel center, they're the largest beneficiaries. So I just can't let that go by. Mansfield is our friend stuff, it just doesn't measure up. We spent a lot of time and money on the Freeze Center, and I think it's not as dead as some people would think.
But they're building
We'll talk about it
with the
in a minute.
YMCA. They're already,
They aren't doing anything at an announcement.
you don't think that they're,
I don't know.
okay, partnering?
I know $125,000 for 15 or 18 million, was that the number that was tossed out there? That is just isn't it's just not in the real world. So we'll, time will tell. My point is that while we were working on that idea for many years, there were direct contact with the Mansfield Convention and the Richland County Convention and Visitors Bureau, explaining how that would be good for both areas. And they were, not one attendance at one meeting, not $1 of support. So that's the other side of another opinion about cooperating. I guess what I'm saying is I would nip in the bud the notion that we would somehow join with Mansfield on this Convention and Visitors Bureau.
I don't
think you were talking about, were you talking about
Pardon me?
Bucyrus?
No, he was talking about Mansfield.
The
Well,
Veterans.
I wasn't sharing an opinion, I was sharing facts of the
Yeah.
last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Literally have brought in that much money to Gallion, because of our affiliation with them.
I mean,
I'm not speaking about the freeze.
and I certainly would never want to rule any other city out at all, for whatever reason, but moving forward, are we ready to go on to the next
I'm
item?
sure I am.
629 roadway grant?
Okay, we have, we received and accepted last year, maybe this late in the year, maybe a full year, a grant. And specifically, it's the roadway grant. I think for 640, I'm working off, I thought we would have a few more numbers, but if you look at the capital improvements budget, so somebody help me, 5 something or other, there's money appropriated to fund the state share of this project. So so there's three pieces to it. There's 75,000, there's 461,000, and then the balance of that is appropriated in the capital improvements fund. I guess I've not moved ahead on this because I'm not certain that the votes are there to authorize the bidding. We've already accepted the money, did that last year, to go ahead and do the advertising for the project.
You're just gonna have to excuse me, what is a 629 roadway grant? Like what do we,
It's a state, in the state budget, the
Right.
state development budget, there's the fund 629 is what it's called.
okay,
And it's used for roadway projects.
and we determine,
No, this money was applied for, and we were awarded that. And really the question is whether or not we want to go ahead and move ahead, we accepted the money, or whether we want to turn that money back.
It was for the drive to, the NIST drive back to the Free Center, if that clears that up for you.
so it's for one specific road?
Yes.
That's how that program works. So it's budgeted, it was accounted for last year. And I think me reading the minds of council is the reason we haven't brought it forward to have a discussion about the project and authorize the design and ultimately the bidding of the project.
What would
The
it,
money will go away at the end of next year if we don't act on it.
so if we move ahead, what will it benefit?
It will build a road back from Valero West and have the infrastructure on the roadway side for future development out there.
Okay, that is,
So
The Freeze project was the initial,
right,
end goal project to that. And, if Tom alluded, to that, maybe that's not 100% off the table, but hopefully, laying down some infrastructure to attract maybe another entity.
that's what I was thinking, Yeah.
Yeah, or in the interim, use it for other recreational purposes. And what I'm referencing there is you could build a really nice set of community soccer fields as an initial step. I don't think intend to talk about a reformulation of that project in conjunction with some other projects that in the near future, this council, the Port Authority, I'm sure will be approaching you individually or as a committee to talk about a renewed effort to build a free center or something like that. So,
do we have an estimate on, or just you're asking to get the estimate on the road, has it been?
yeah, I think it's
looked
been
at?
estimated,
And is it within?
and I think it has. I'm sorry. I think it's been designed.
Okay,
Okay. The water and sewer lines haven't been, but I think we've gone ahead and got the design paid for.
okay. So what would,
Okay, so that's I don't want to have my reading of the look on Mike's face and having had a lot of conversations with him or what Doc thought about the project and, to sort of count and see whether they're the votes. It's in the budget. I don't want it to go by. However, if we're not gonna deliver with the state on this money. And maybe even too kind of late to let them know and free up the money. I oftentimes think about the next project we're gonna need to do with these same funding entities. And you really don't wanna have the reputation of the community that just held on to the money.
Right,
Well,
I
if you
was
give it
gonna-
back and you give them time to work with, it's different than sitting on it till the end and then having that appropriation go up so it can't be reallocated to a project in, I don't know, Canton, where they actually are building a dome like this. They may need some roadway money for that.
I mean, I think if we could present the benefits of it, then the council would obviously be more.
Well, here's one of the couple of things that's in with this. First off, was that at the time, the roadway was approximately, with the water and sewer, approximately $1.5 million. Okay, the grant itself does not come to that. We would have to utilize money from the payments that we had received from the can't think of the name of it. It's on South Street.
HTI.
HTI building. Okay, we still have one more payment to come in 2-3. The issue becomes one of, as the mayor mentioned, that do we want to spend not necessarily just that, but community money, the HTI money, and extra money, because the grant actually is only 30% of what was that we were supposed to come up with. Okay, that's the other caveat. The issue becomes one, do you want to take and spend community dollars out to a road that currently goes nowhere? The property is out there. It's not connected to any other roadway. Literally, you would be running the road through private property as it stands right now to get to that lot out there. Which I don't, if there's somebody that's wanting to build something out there, it's got the money, it's got the mechanism in play, I'm all for it. But given the circumstances of other things going on in the community, I find it very difficult to, at this point in time, to think that we should utilize these other funds. I hate to turn it back to the state. My question was, Tom, is there any opportunity to use, or is there stipulations where we could maybe use what we actually have as a grant, whatever that, I don't remember what the amount is, and build what we can with that money at that point in time, and that with the idea that maybe we finish it off at a later date that would still be used in fund, but I don't know the criteria of the stipulations in that grant, whether we have to do certain things absolutely, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
And
If I might, a handful of those things, a lot of what Mike's saying is a well-developed point of view on to build or not to build. The conversation a year ago was cart before the horse, and we've talked about that. Don't necessarily agree 100%, but that's one way to look at it. The roadway is not private property. The roadway is part of the original conveyance, where the owner out there deeded that over and the property in exchange for the roadway access that then that same property owner used to sell the ground to put in Valero. So there's no additional right-of-way. The right-of-way is there. It's an important question, and if council wants to go ahead, first have the discussion and then decide to go ahead with the project. An initial contact's been made by the partnership with development to try to identify if something short of the original project would satisfy their requirements. And if that is the case, then it's $1 million road for 150 or 200,000. It would be hard to turn that down.
Cause you,
So,
I think you had mentioned
Yeah.
earlier that we don't have to necessarily give it back, maybe tell them it's on hold or something.
well, I think the authority will go away in end of '23. So there is I've sat on this wondering when, if there ever was the right time to bring it back up. But when you get a chance,
Okay.
let's see here. There is 172,000 in the budget under infrastructure in the 401, which is the capital improvements fund. I also think there's 50, so that answers a question I just asked Matt, and that's whether the design's been paid for. I think the short answer is it's ready to bid if y'all want to do it. The question that you asked that needs an answer is, would a soccer field with an ongoing effort to build the facility allow for the reimbursement? Because that's how this would work. We would sell the project and then count on reimbursement for the roadway based on what may not be a completed project. May not be a project that is under active discussion. So yeah, we want to make sure that we don't spend the money. That would be a bad day at City Hall. So that is a good question, and that answer remains out there. Needs to be determined. I think that partnership's probably the best entity for a couple of reasons to do that. So anyway, money's in the budget. I think it will go to a good use, and I think my opinion, last thought on this, a redefined free center that is based on the needs of the local community. And that's where the whole thing started, was a needs assessment that said we don't have enough gym space for our kids, and these are the consequences. That's where the project initiated. A project sized on that, and that's the expectation. I think it's still good for the community. I don't think there's a consensus. I'm not even sure if there's a consensus around that idea, but I am convinced that there isn't one right now around the idea of a free center funded travel sports facility. I don't think there's a solid consensus in the community. I know there's not. It would likely be 4-3 if we called that particular question.
What's the state's contribution to this? You talked about capital improvements to fund non-state fund. What's the state promise to kick in? Mike mentioned
75,000
Okay.
for a thing called Jobs in Progress. And then 461, I think, something like that, through that 629 fund. And then the balance, the last time this was closely estimated, would be about 170. So whatever those three add up is the cost of the road.
But I mean, would the costs have gone up with all of the costs of materials and everything?
That's why I said,
Yeah,
what I
let's
said.
talk about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I said. The other thing, as you get a chance, if you look at the rest of the capital improvements fund in this 401 budget, you'll see under capital outlay for water, there's 271. That's the money for the water line,
Okay.
same project. And then 325. That's in there for sewer, that's the money for the sewer line for the project. So all of this is in the budget. I think we picked up a no vote, as it sounds like us and them, but I think you voted against the budget, maybe in part because of this, you voted for the budget. I'm not trying to catch on that, but, anyways, it was a thin, it's in the budget. I think it didn't become a big subject to discuss or argue. But from that point of view,
So what would you like us to do? Bring it to, have a discussion with the council members, or
Well,
what would you like us to do?
well, I'm gonna bring it up again tomorrow night, hopefully for Tom's 4 years that he doesn't,
Okay.
we don't get into the detail, and see if there's a consensus around moving the project forward. But it seemed to me to be, good as a refresher and a whole bunch of stuff coming at you maybe for the first time, so I wanted to bring that up. It's always, a lot of times, it's in the budget, that justifies everything, I think it's a little bit more complicated question, and I don't want to build a road to nowhere, but sometimes, as I said last year, sometimes pieces of a complicated or complex project come together, not cart and horse like you'd like, but you have to move on, in this case, the basic infrastructure when there's money to do it. So that would be the last thing I'd say, and I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you for your patience in explaining it to me.
Yeah.
Since I wasn't on the council.
Sure thing.
So the next item is engineering proposal, Zach Gallen Police Department, US 30.
No.
No, it's GPD, but somebody said that earlier today at the courthouse. It's the engineering firm.
Yeah, he'll explain it.
Somebody else made the mistake too.
Yeah, it is for sure.
And then I saw US 30, State Route 61,
Yeah,
what does that have to do with?
They want to put a station out there. They're going to build a $40 million
I think we need
complex
one.
out there.
Okay, GPD group, here we go. We talked about, did we?
Okay, this is kind of new, and the proposal came in September, so it's been sitting around the office for a while. Let's see, I'll try to make it as sure as I can. When 30 was announced many years ago now, there was Freeze Works east and west, and there were lots. And there was one building, as I recall, the spec building where E-Crane is now, and then initially Central State came. But as the announcement of that highway project came, all of those lots sold. And so as a result of that, we don't have as a community any place for new industry or candidly expanding industry to go. Some businesses have space on their own lot, but oftentimes when somebody expands, that's an opportunity to lose them, to put it negatively. If they're expanding, they'll look at all options as to where to locate. We really don't have any sites and or buildings to attract new industry or to meet the needs of an expanding company in town. 598 is going to, I think, that area out there that you might be thinking, well, what about out there? I think that will fill up kind of fast. When they get the building built, I think it'll have some use, whether it has as much energy intense use like a data center might, or sort of traditional manufacturing, where I think a lot of our mines are, or it's simply warehousing. Time will tell, but that building is going to move fast once it's completed. I'm optimistic about another building kind of on that site that could be constructed based on the success of the first building. Beyond that, as you look, there really aren't many parcels that are out there that would lend themselves to an industrial park or a set of industries or one great big huge box. Any use that I think is important for the growth of the community. We need to have sites and buildings, and then we're in the business of economic development. So, all that being said, for many years now, there has been a lot of discussion, not a lot of money, that's what this comes in, not, looking at the 6061 interchange. And you drive by and say, man, something ought to happen there. And I'm among the group somewhere in those four corners of that interchange, something really needs to happen. What this study does is takes a look, would propose to take a look in detail of 3 different ways to remove sewage from future development. And take a look at it. I think I'm prone to read the beginning and the very end. It's in bold print. It's 29.9 to study whether you build a package plant on site and release the waste into a stream that moves through Crestline. Bring the sewage back towards town and do one of 2 things. Put it into the existing interceptor sewer and take it around town over to Hosford. Kind of the sewage bypass, if you think of it. It skirts the edge of town. Or the third thing would be to locate a package plant adjacent to the old Antangi near Naser Road, in that area. No parcels have been identified, but once you go across the river there, it changes the costs, and you're probably better served to get into the interceptor rather than treat it on site and discharge right into the Olentangy. So that's the study is designed to look at those 3 options, give us at City Hall an idea of what are the cost spread, what are the what each alternative would involve, and then put us on a footing to go seeking funding or somehow loading that into the cost of the developed per acre cost. So that's what that is. I think it's good to update y'all. We don't, we could do this study without going to council, but that's kind of the wrong way to go from a dollar amount point of view is what I mean. So really that's what this is. Was there other quotes? No.
So is this who we just really use them without looking at other quotes from other engineers, or how does that?
Yeah, I think and that's the gist of it.
Okay.
We have an exemption in the law for engineering, and we don't have to use a bid process.
Okay.
And it's small enough that if we were going about building it and designing the construction of the selected alternative, then we would put GPD and other qualified firms through that process to see which design we would prefer. And then certainly if and when this part of getting infrastructure to the site's accomplished, when we actually bid it, we'll certainly be open to any and all builders. So.
And GPD has for years provided, reliable service and engineering on a variety of projects. And while the fact that it was not bid out, in this case, does not bother me a bit in terms of. I get it.
But a lot of the institutional knowledge of this area and this potential project really is in Lynn McKeever's knowledge base. That the firm that he no longer is the head of, they're very busy doing projects for other communities and so I think this is the most timely way to get some information. We're just, we've talked about that as a site, and there are a few things that have to be done for us to take ourselves seriously and have funding agencies take it seriously, so.
So you'll bring this to
Do we need
finance?
an ordinance for this?
No, I don't think so. I
Mr.
see it as
No.
yeah, I see it as an
No.
economic development.
No.
Because of the dollar amount, so.
But anyways,
So will you discuss it with finance committee too? Is
I
that
mean,
your
I
plan?
can, but
Or do
probably
you want us to-
not. I mean, this is informational and I'll just kind of stop at that.
Okay,
Well, I was gonna say, I think that, the opportunity to open up the door for the 3061 exchange out there, I think is worth looking into. There is a lot of potential out there. We currently have water out there. We currently have electricity out there. So this would be at least the next, heading towards the next step, which could garner more interest.
and I agree. I think it's, I think it would be, definitely beneficial for the economic development and just to see what the feasibility study. I will say that, the only pushback I can see from our citizens is they talk a lot about why we're not improving downtown and why we're going to all these outlying areas. So, and I'm just saying, that's what I hear from just, and so
Well,
I think we need to
maybe
give
rightly so,
something
but
to
I
get,
don't think that comparison is fair
I-
because
true,
the people, the biggest concerns were economic development and job creation, and you're not gonna do that downtown. You're not gonna do that uptown. There's just no space or buildings available. So, I mean,
You're right.
while I get that improvement of the uptown and making it easy for businesses to operate, we also have to look within the city limits, but at locations that are, I mean, you can't plot down.
no, I know, I agree, I'm just
You know,
saying
building-
what I think
Well, I think there's
citizens
two
might
separate-
say, and that's okay, because then I think if we just, can provide a good explanation and explain where, the vision of the city of Galion is, and just do it that way, then
Right.
I think with them understanding, the reasons that we do things, I think that the citizens will better understand.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm in favor, just as
Yeah,
a
I'm in favor,
tacit, to go ahead with
I think it's,
the decision.
Okay.
Since we
I think it's a good
since we
idea.
don't need an ordinance,
Okay.
just approval, I don't know, and Mike, I think you gave your.
I agree with both of you.
Yeah,
I think that anything to develop out there, and like the doc said, to bring jobs to Galion, I am for. So if this will help,
It's a good site out there. I think there's general consensus. It's a site that if the table were partially set or entirely set, you could begin to see investment. You have to, you can imagine, and I think there have been a few windshield trips out there. Now, you can imagine this would be here and this would be there, and that it's painful when you're in that position of trying to sell. In this case, still someone else's property. So I think the part of getting control of the property and having a locked-in plan is this first feasibility study. There's water out there. Everyone, including the city of Galion, would want to bring power to it. The multi-million-dollar question has been sewer. So
well, I think the angle would be that if we have more development and more jobs, naturally the downtown area is going to develop. So that could be a good angle.
yeah, many of the things that I see where people talk to me about lacking in the uptown area would be solved with 3,000 or 4,000 more people. I mean, they were sort of there if we were a town of 15,000 versus 10,500. Some of that risk-taking would take advantage. We might have an axe throwing place. We might have, other things that seem to be you know, what younger people want to do. So-
Dog grooming place.
Well, there's, you know, that's like right at the edge of town. I don't know if you're serious, but there is one right at the edge of town. So it doesn't have to be uptown, but and that's a whole different discussion.
Okay,
So we'll go ahead. I just wanted to make sure there was general transparency on that issue, and we really got to get moving.
Okay. so the last one is Crawford Partnership.
Right. That is earlier in the year. Decision was made. How that's been funded is under contract services in the mayor's budget. And I think most council members were knowledgeable about it, but it wasn't generally known that our contribution was $49,950 or something like that. Somebody wanting to be critical would say you intentionally didn't take it to council. I don't think that's the fair way to read it, but our annual investment has been slightly less than requires us to get councilmatic approval. Okay. Earlier this year, the design of the left turn lane, that had to be paid for. And so I made a decision to take that out of the mayor's budget and use that to pay for that design, that $600,000 roadway. Anyways, so the money that we would have used out of the mayor's budget to make our investment or our payment to the partnership is gone. So tonight, by way of full disclosure, and then tomorrow likely as a request for supplemental. I don't know what all the financials are gonna be, but if we want to continue to participate, we're gonna have to appropriate some money and then be in a position to, we've always paid our dues, if you will, late in the year, so that's not different, but. So that's
Who's
the
head of Crawford Partnership now? What's
state exact.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't even know what all this is.
So-
I would say some of what they do, I think, is indispensable, and some of what they do, I'm not at all a fan of, and I've expressed that to them.
Okay.
I think what we should be paying for is they're our economic development entity, and we've been doing that prior to the Port Authority coming online. I see them doing similar area, but not stepping on each other. I don't think you can fund the Port Authority and dump the partnership, nor fund the partnership and have the port swim on their own. So I think what I recommend is to go ahead and supplement 50,000. Between now and tomorrow, I'll look in the budget, in the mayor's budget, see if we can't, there's some unutilized areas. We're down a person, that may help reduce the size of the supplemental, but
The port's been working closely with David Zach, especially David's been the point when we have a Jobs Ohio discussion and so forth. So we've established a good working relationship, especially as it applies to commercial properties, etc. So David and I have every 2 weeks we have a conference call or a meeting where we kind of talk about next steps to, we're working on a means to better expose properties to the Columbus real estate community, etc. So, I must say that the port and the partnership are in sync.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Sounds like a.
yeah, give you a chance to think about it. And I think the last time there was any discussion, there was like a long list of bullet point things that they had done, and nobody was really challenging that, but just trying to get an accounting of what their activities are. I know we want to sort of get at, but one thing that, I made reference to things that they're involved in that I don't. I'm not a big supporter. I think generally speaking, and Dave feels almost the opposite end of this, so it kind of makes for some good discussion, that I think their primary focus should be on developing sites and buildings and supporting cities in getting the resources, state resources, the federal resources, to make things like the industrial park happen. And I think when they get involved in community development issues, that's not their sweet spot. They should not be involved in that. And specifically, there's a discussion right now about whether or not they should hire a workforce development specialist. So anyone want to stop up and talk about that for a long time, I'd submit that, just point out that there's over $100 million spent on education in Crawford County every year. And I'm scratching my head wondering, isn't that workforce development? Isn't that what K through 12 education needs to be part of? So before we get involved, partnership with limited resources and staff in workforce development, I really think that there should be renewed effort to have the schools work more closely. There are some activities beginning to happen, the wage tours are starting up and those things, but really a more full-fledged and serious effort to make sure that our median income is $40,000. Okay, there are people in Gallion who will spend $40,000 next year on their kids' college education. Okay, there are a lot of young people who come from that group that cause it to be $40,000, and they need to be more job ready than I think many employers have communicated for a long time about that. So it's maybe tilting at windmills, maybe taking on the educational establishment, like, what are you doing, Mayor? You should just get the water facility going. But I'm uncomfortable with the partnership funding and many of the workforce development activities that they're involved in. We need sites, we need buildings, we need sites, we need buildings. And so I'll just stop there. I think what you'll find if you were to study it is that those places that are landing the big projects have sites with utilities or a plan for utilities and a plan to get buildings. And we don't. In Crawford County, we have one site left at Crossroads, and we don't really have a site. Got the one out there at Pico. We don't have any place to bring. If you found an industry that wanted to come and build their nest here, we wouldn't have. We're working on housing. We need to be able to have a site and a plan to have a building there. Or we're going to be dependent just on the employers we have now, and I'm not sure that's a safe bet for the community going forward.
I mean, I don't want to open up a huge can of worms, but there was a lot of empty buildings that I see driving around. I mean, but I know they're either on the list for being demolished or they're sites.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I come from this side. I know Doc's got this and everything, but I'm industrial. You're not going, in most cases, in what's with the advent of asbestos
I know.
and all this type of stuff. Most people that are going to build something, they're not going to take and come to an older building where the risk is an asbestos issue. That suddenly, oh, there is this problem. There's too many of those stories out there. So what you have is many businesses, unless the business is the building has been put up within a certain time frame.
After 1978.
I'll point out the HTI building, okay? They're gonna be leery about that, or they're gonna build their own with a spec building, because that's one of the popular things. I've made it no bones that I have some issues with the partnership, and the reason why I have issues is because we essentially spend $50,000 worth of taxpayers' money every year to benefit the community of Galion. I want to see those some type of tangibles. While the mayor mentioned job education, which is fine, but again, the state, there's plenty of those out there. I want to see is the opportunity for a business to come in. There's a building here, there's property here, it's ready to go, they can walk in and hook up. I mean, I'm being simplistic, obviously, but, and the mayor's actually thinking the same thing I was thinking is that's going to be more of an interest. Because we have, for Galion, in my opinion, is we have a great focal point. We have 30 and we have 598. Okay? I think 61 could be a secondary focal point, quite frankly. But again, we have those opportunities. If we don't utilize them, and in the case of the partnership spending, I would much rather see them spend money for, take our money and bring us projects, or bring us people that are looking for projects, or however that work shakes out in that regard.
Well, I think the idea is that, yes, when you build these, that people you'll increase your population. But I think on the other hand, people don't want to live by these abandoned eyesores. And so you've got kind of a double issue, there. Like, what do you do with them? You want to make it, attractive, but then again, you've got, these abandoned buildings that people really don't like. So I see that, I see your point, but then I also see the point of, but these people are going to live here. So it's kind of a quandary, really.
Now, let me just quickly comment on a few things. The partnership played a key role in the development of the hotel, subsequently the Valero, don't get me going on how the spec building was funded, because I think the city of Galion's role was maybe minimized, but that wouldn't have happened without the partnership working with the developer out there. The turn lane, that's a project that I think was nurtured along with partnership help in the TID. The previously discussed money for the roadway, that really was arranged by the partnership. So it's kind of funny, it's a damnable situation to be in. When you go to Bucyrus, the complaint on the street is the partnership, or for a while, it gets personal. It's like, well, all Gary ever does is bring things to Galion. He comes over here and he gets, the rib shot from people saying, all you ever do is bring things to Bucyrus. So I think that we have done pretty well on economic development and working with the partnership. There are results out there. The couple of projects that are on the business side I don't want to get into, but Coverts and Tremec Sloan were projects for the expansion. We'll see what happens with Shutterfly. So we have gotten attention on that job development, business development side. I just think that they're getting into an area that it's hard to prove results. If you get 50 new jobs, there's another 200 people who still need work or want work. So I think that's not one of the areas where they should reduce and focus and produce results. So anyways, I do think there's much downside that would happen. Not sure where we would go if we weren't part of the partnership. So
I think there's plenty of jobs finding the people.
yeah,
It's not like it, I mean, it's me being in the healthcare field, you know, I mean, it's tough.
yeah,
So,
I think there is I think there are.
so,
It's transitory though, is what I was gonna say, like inflation, you know?
Yeah.
It's transitory, we had, there was emphasis on the quality of workers and drug tests and those sorts of things. Things change a little bit, now it's just I just need people. So I think the point I'm trying to make is in the short term, with our juniors and seniors and our high school kids, for whom college is probably a large debt, maybe it's not the greatest investment, that building up that side of getting people job ready is an important part of meeting your need, and healthcare, meeting, the industrial needs. So anyways, I'm not much fun to go to those meetings with, but I think it's important that we continue to participate, so I'll bring that forward tomorrow. And,
do we have any other business? The next meeting will be November 15th at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion to
I'll make that motion.
adjourn?
I'll second that.
Meeting adjourned at